This is Brad Montgomery. Welcome to the Successful, Interesting, and Awesome podcast, where I interview people who are, wait for it, successful, interesting, and awesome. Or at least one of those three. What's up, everybody? Brad Montgomery. Thank you for being here. Have you been washing your hands? I'm excited. I have wanted to talk to this guy for a long time, and this podcast has been an excellent excuse. This guy is a top-shelf, world-class juggler. He's an MC. He's been all over, I think, every cruise line. You saw him on America's Got Talent. But also, he's got this crazy side that he invents like high-end technical gear for performers and speakers. Plus, he's really nice. Please say hello to Charles Peachock. Charles, hello.
Brad, man, it's good to connect again, as always.
Did I make up anything on that intro that was wrong?
No, I think you got most of the key points. That's for sure, man.
All right. And, I've been stalking you a little bit because preparing for this, I started Googling the crap out of you. I found some things I did not expect, but let's just get into the main thing. Your main job, if I say, what do you do for a living? I'm guessing you're going to say, I'm a juggler.
It is. And you know what, man? It's a tough label to live with because it has a preconceived notion. So you say you're a juggler, they're like, oh, my kid's having his birthday party in 2 weeks. Like, what can we do here? Like, how can we make this work? So they have a preconceived notion, but I have a very high produced, like very big playing show that I've been working for 20 years. And so I've been trying to take the notion of the word juggler and redefine it.
Well, yeah, let's just jump into that because I'm going to ask you how you got to be a juggler, but I started out as a magician and still do magic sometimes in my keynotes, and I have a lot of passion for magic. And definitely, if like sitcoms or jokes come up where they're going to make fun of anybody in variety arts, it's always the magician or the
juggler
mime.
Gets it a lot too.
Yeah, so yeah, because with magicians, we were like, oh no, it's an adult crowd, or we don't want silly, we want high-end entertainment. But so how do you answer that?
It's tough until they see you work live. People just have a set notion. You can send them your promo reel and they can kind of get it and understand that you're playing at a higher level and that you can work at their event. But their initial reaction is always going to be the same unless they've seen you perform live before.
But even, I've seen your videos. You don't look like you're at a kid's birthday party.
You are also a professional entertainer. You know how to look at promo videos and what's real and what's not and what level. You and I can look at a promo reel of any performer, and within 30 seconds, we know exactly where he's at and what level he's.
Yeah, that's true.
We have very trained eyes and ears.
That's true, because I have people call me when they're looking for a speaker, and they ask, they're not stupid questions, but they're like, oh, you just have no idea what you're shopping. You've never bought this category before.
They aren't necessarily educated, well-trained buyers. I mean, we deal with corporate producers, and they're doing like 200 events a year, and they have to hire 10 entertainers per event. And I deal with cruise line bookers who have a roster of 300 acts and 100 submissions a month from other potential acts. So they're very savvy buyers, and they know what they're looking for, and they know how to find it, and they can tell the difference between refined and great and middle of the road.
Yeah, well, I know enough to say that you're the top shelf. So before we get to talk about what you're doing now, how in the world does a little kid grow up to be a professional juggler? Because that's a long shot, dude.
It's funny because I started off in magic also. When I was about 8 years old, I started off in magic, and I still love magic, and I hang out with a lot of magicians, and we geek out, and we do card tricks, and it's great to be surrounded with literally some of the best magicians in the world working on these circuits. But I still love it, and I still do a little bit of it. But I started off at that when I was 8. And I think it's just an attention thing. You know, there's something built in us performers that we do. We need to seek that attention. And maybe it was being the youngest child in the family, or who knows what it was, but something got set in me that I needed to be seen or heard on a bigger level than a normal person. And so magic was a way to get attention and to get that reaction from people and to feel important. And so that I carried that with me for a little while, and I did a couple little stage appearances as a magician. And then when I was 11, actually, my brother started juggling, and he was doing it for about a year, and I was like, that's really stupid. And then I couldn't have him doing something that I couldn't do at least a little bit of. So I was like, okay, let me just learn three so I can say, oh yeah, I can do this too.
Right.
And I learned it, and I got into it, and I just got hooked. It was something about it where you could just pour an infinite amount of resources, like all your time into it, and you could get something out of it. Magic, it was a lot of it is about, what trick can I buy, and I have to buy something else or make something else in order to get another effect. Whereas juggling, it was just woodshed. You just put in your hours, you just grind it out and practice, and you get better and better. And that's the only way. No one can shortcut around that. And I kind of like that, that I had that much potential and space to grow and work in.
It is true, and I think that's one of the things that I have admired about juggling. Because so you started as a magician, I started as a magician. I'm a juggler. I can do three
Yeah,
balls. What's the big deal?
nice.
Um, but I think one of the things I love so much about juggling that's different from magic is magic talks about, yep, can you buy that prop, or also can you learn that secret? Or juggling says there's no secret. Just
And that's, and
go
I don't
do
mean
it.
to, I really don't mean to like demean what top level magicians are doing. They have to understand not just their practice stuff, but they have to understand how an audience works, the perception, what's going on mentally, how to connect with people. Those are all learned skills that take decades. So it's not like you can just go out and buy a couple tricks and hit the main stage. So I understand all that, but the
But I
technical
sense a
stuff,
but.
yeah. Yeah, it was. It definitely is. There's this is an old adage I like to say. Magic, it looks like it's happening, but it's really not. Juggling, it looks like it's not happening, but it really is. So it's kind of a yin and yang with those two art forms, I think. And I've always found that interesting. But I do love magic, and yeah, there's. I just I fell into juggling after magic, and that's all it's been ever since then.
How old were you as a kid then when you had a full show?
As a magician, I never had a full show. I had a couple chances that I could appear on stage for a little bit and do my
Hmm.
one-off effect, but I didn't really have a show at that age. I just have stuff I'd show my friends and relatives, and then there were a couple key times where there was an opportunity to be on stage, and I do my little song and dance, just like a routine.
So then we fast forward to juggling.
Mhm.
When did you start to get that show together?
Well, it was funny because when I first started, I didn't really care about talking to an audience or building unique effects. I just wanted to be like an ice skater or a gymnast. I wanted to like take all this hard work and this difficult material that I've honed, and I just wanted to showcase that for 8 minutes, to music. And that was it. That's how I saw my journey and dream of becoming a professional juggler. But as things changed, you start doing a little bit of comedy, and then you start to see this other layer happening with the audience, where you're not just impressing them, but now you're making them laugh. You have endorphins, and you have a connection with them, and then they see your personality, and they see who you are, and that's valuable, to both parties. And so all these other things are available if you don't just juggle and try and impress them. And so I started to see the value, and I really started to enjoy those other aspects. And then that's how the show started building out more and more.
Hmm.
And that was the evolution of my juggling career goals.
So does that mean, Charles, when you first started as a juggler, you were that almost like the intermission act? Here comes the 8 minute
Yeah.
blow you away act,
Ha-
and then there he goes.
that was it. Wanted to be halftime shows. I wanted to do like Vegas, like just quick the variety spot for like 6 minutes
Right.
in between stuff and production shows. But never thought I'd be doing a one man full featured 70-minute show just by myself. But that's where I am now.
It's so fascinating to me that because I just assumed, Charles, that jugglers who were doing that 8 minute bit or whatever, because they, by the way, they always are the best part of the show, right? Because they come in, this bundle of energy, this bundle of emotion, all this visual stuff, and the
Yeah.
audience goes bonkers and
Yep.
they leave. I always
Yeah.
thought that that was what jugglers settled for, because they're like, oh, dang it. They'd prefer to do the full act, but they do
I
the 8 minutes.
I
You started the other way around.
I I did, and I think most jugglers do. So what happens, Brad, is like I think Either you're trained from circus family or a traditional and you do that 8 minutes, and that's how you're making your living. That's how you're getting your name, and you're working on that circuit, and those are the only gigs you kind of know, and that's what you're known for. And to grow out of that and to be a comic and to connect with the audience is a whole different skill set, and it takes decades a lot of times to get real comfort and connection with the audience. And when you're doing that 8 minutes, you never touch on that skill set. And so those people are kind of pigeonholed into that. And I've watched people try and move out of it and have extreme difficulty. They're just so awkward and unnatural and on stage in their delivery. And you would think they've been up on stage the whole time, but talking to an audience and understanding that and
Right.
timing is a whole different ball game. And every temperature of an audience is different, and you have to adjust to that as a performer. And so it's a whole skill set that gets built in the back of your head, and you don't even know that you're growing this that muscle. In juggling, you could see it, like, okay, I've gone from 5 to 7, over 10 years. That's tangible.
Right.
But as far as becoming a seasoned performer and dealing with everything and being great at connecting with audiences and being likable on stage, it can't be quantified like on paper or on video. It's just a skill set that you
Yeah.
have inside of you.
Charles, I'm embarrassed to say I never thought of that. By the way, Tim Prendergast is giving you a greeting. What's up, Tim? He says hello, Brad and Charles.
You got it.
If you're just doing the juggling to music, you can practice that all day long in your garage, and then when you get it, you go put it in front of the audience, and aside from maybe some nerves, it's exactly the same. Whereas what you're doing now, where you're interacting with the audience all the time, yeah, that's way hard.
Whoa.
Uh-oh, we just lost you. Oh, nice floor.
Yeah. We went to sleep. I'm just gonna hold her here.
I think it's
I think it was my gimbal. My gimbal ran out of juice, I think.
well, do you want to set it up, or how can I help you?
Oh no, we're good. We're good like this. I'm fine.
We're going to test
As
your
long as you can
juggling
see me
skills.
okay.
Yeah, how you doing there?
Right.
Nice. All right, yeah, because definitely, like a comedian, you don't learn how to be a comedian in 3 years, but I guess you could learn a kick-ass juggling 5-minute bit in 3 years.
Yeah, and there is another skill set about dealing with the nerves. Juggling is one of the worst things for nerves because it's such a delicate balance. And somebody like a gymnast or somebody who's like a weightlifter, the more adrenaline they get, the better it is. For juggling, it's just such a disruptor and it's so obvious when you make a mistake. When you're a guitarist and you hit a wrong string, your guitar doesn't fall on the floor, and you have to pick it up and start over. Juggling is just so obvious also, and it's one of the most inconsistent things. It's like worse than ice skating and gymnastics. Any little thing can set it off. So I actually had to learn, one of the biggest lessons I learned as a professional was how to go way below my actual skill set. So in practice, I'm in fourth and fifth and sixth gear. I used to want to be in those gears on stage, but you have the nerves and you have the lights and you have to trying to hit choreography and all these other things you're having to deal with, and you're gonna just the mistakes are gonna compound. So I've learned to first gear, second gear, occasionally third gear is where I slip into as far as the difficulty at what I'm doing. And that was something I really had to discipline myself because I did that work. I wanted them to see fourth, fifth, and sixth gear. But then as you mature as a performer, you stop caring about what you want and you start making it about your audience. And that's where you start really growing and your show really starts taking off.
Oh, I love that metaphor about gears. Dude, it's distracting. So in an effort to serve our audiences, which is what you mentioned, see what I did there? That was a pivot. Take that phone and find a place where you can sit down and prop it up.
Okay.
So
Okay.
don't worry about the background, but it's wiggly and you deserve better.
Gotcha. All right, we got you.
So like sit on the floor, sit on a desk, sit at your kitchen table, prop it up on a salt shaker.
Okay, let me see what I can do.
So
I can't believe the gimbal went out.
I love that you were talking about the nerves because I've juggled as part of my act, including recently. And yeah, it just scares the crap out of me. Like my magic is so fine, and I'm not doing stuff that any juggler would be impressed with. But I'm telling you, for me, it's up there at what I'm physically capable as. And
I know a lot of magicians. I know a lot of magicians who put juggling into their magic act, just a little bit of it, and even the top level professionals who were doing it, they would miss about half the time, and it was just simple juggling stuff. And that it kind of made me feel good and be like, okay, you're
Yeah.
trying to do just a tiny bit of it, and it's the one thing that always goes wrong in your show.
I
It's
can't think
not
of
an easy
anything
thing.
worse than me doing a show and pulling out a magic thing and then seeing, oh, great, there's Charles. Oh, I don't want him to see this. I did this thing for years, Charles, the 8 ball gag. I learned it from a Colorado guy, but you have two genuine 8 balls and one rubber 8 ball, and you throw up the
Oh
rubber
yeah,
one and hits your head. All right, so then I started
yes.
wearing glasses with progressive lenses. Have you had to deal with vision issues as a juggler?
No, luckily. In fact, I actually got LASIK done when I was 20. It was a while ago when I was in my early 20s. But that was for farsightedness. I was nearsighted, so I could see things up close. The juggling wasn't that bad with my vision ever, but doing the operation made it even sharper.
Yeah, because I hadn't, that screws you up. If that ball is coming down and you're slightly out of focus, that sucks.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it gets worse on stage with lighting. I mean, sometimes I won't even get to see the stage. I've had emergencies where I can't even see the stage before I go out, and that curtain opens, and it could be anything. I have all these different lights in your face. When my girlfriend travels with me, and she's starting to juggle a little bit, and when she comes up on for rehearsals, she's just like, "How do you even start to juggle in this? All these lights are just pouring in your face." And I'm like, you learn to deal with it. It's just you kind of start to ignore it and just focus on what you need to catch.
Yeah, even with my limited experience, I did learn that you really forget the sound check. You want that light check.
Yeah, yeah, that is important.
Uh, all right, so let's go backwards in time. You said have that personality where you just wanted to see kind of, hey, look at me. And I think anybody in variety arts has that same thing. Like, hey, check it out. And then I discovered through the Google that you're also a drummer. Same personality type. Hey, look at me. Like,
Yeah,
you didn't pick French horn. You didn't pick second violin. You picked drum set.
right. Yeah.
So have you noticed that too? Like, what is the deal with
I see a
personalities like
lot of
yours?
I see those three things actually happen a lot. Magic, juggling, and drumming. They kind of cross over a lot. In fact, there's a guy who's a professional juggler, Ivan Pacell, a great act, and he has almost the three same hobbies as I do. Well, one a career, and he started off in magic, then he went to juggling, and he learned drums somewhere along the way. It's so funny. And I've seen it time and time again. I don't know what it is, but I guess those pieces of art, those art forms, attract us for one reason or another.
Well, guess what's right behind my camera?
What's that?
Guess what's right behind my camera?
A drum set?
Totally, right in my office, right there.
Ha! That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I know. When I saw that you're a drummer, I'm like, of
And
course he is.
upstairs, all I want.
All right, check this out. Here's another magician. Tim says he's played drums professionally for several years. Tim, I didn't know that, but that's another thing. Tim's a magician. Weird personality type. All right, so how old were you, Mr. Peachock, when you realized, all right, it's working. I am a juggler. I'm making a living as a
It's
juggler.
it's that's one of the things that I'll always be super thankful for is knowing my path like so quickly. It was only about 2 years in to juggling, and I was like 13 years old. I was like, this is all I'm ever gonna do. I was like, I don't care if I have to sleep in my car. I don't care if I don't make any money. This is all I want to do. And really, that is the only way to make it in show business, I think, and to not have a backup plan. So many people talk about that, and it gives you an out. If you have no backup plan, you're forced to make it happen.
Did you know how hard it was? You said I was willing to live in my car, but did you know there's a lot of people who say they'd like to be a juggler, but they can't make it because it's just brutal.
Well, I I was uh, through work ethic, and I was good right away. And that doesn't come naturally. I don't believe in natural talent. I really don't. I believe in our brains work a different way, and we process information a different way, and we tell ourselves different stories that we can and we can't do it. And the amount of intensity that you put into your practice and focus, I think that is a measure of how talented you become. And that's one reason why kids so young gets so good. I mean, look at the guitar players. These kids are, putting out stuff. It's like Yngwie Malmsteen, like, solos and like just crazy stuff at the age of, 10 and 12. It's because they've seen it can be done. They see videos of somebody else doing it. And so it becomes like, oh, well, that can be done. Our brain gets in the way a lot of times, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this concept of the lizard brain telling you can't do something. And so I think those people that excel don't have can master that voice that tells them those things, and is willing to put in the work, and they believe that they can do it.
Yeah, that I think that was true with me when I started saying, "All right, I guess I'm an entertainer."
Yeah.
I was too stupid. I didn't know. I didn't know that I wasn't very good yet, and I didn't know how hard this was, and that the numbers were against me. I didn't know that people more talented than me had quit to get a real job. It just seemed like, all right, let's go, and I just did it.
Well, I mean, there's so many different levels that we get to work up in our career. At first we just get hired for, as a magician, you do like birthday parties or like cocktail parties you move up to, where you're performing card tricks from table to table, and then you get a regular gig at TGI Fridays, and then next thing you know, you get a big break at a fair. Somebody had a falling out and they need somebody. It's just all these little micro steps. It's not like we got to go right from getting your first to a main stage with Disney. So it's all these little micro victories, and the journey.
Oh, dude, we are.
Not happy until they're way at the finish line. I like the growth. I like the journey.
I lost you just for a second, but we got most of it. Our bandwidth is just seems like it's
Sure.
struggling a little bit, Charles. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Those micro steps. I remember
Uh,
my first gig my first gig that wasn't strolling or whatever. I got $165. I had never felt that rich. Like I thought I was so
right.
rich.
Indeed. And I mean, I was, 13 years old, and I was doing strolling gigs, like making $75 an hour. My friends are working at Taco Bell. At that time, minimum wage was probably like $6 or something.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's talk about the big stages because I know that you work them. Um, before pre-COVID, how did that
Yeah.
happen? That you started moving on to bigger and bigger, and you mentioned all the cruises and Disney stages. How'd that happen?
Yeah. It's just those micro movements. You keep going up, and then you're doing gigs, strolling gigs, and then you're doing little shows for parties and small corporate parties. And it just move up the ladder, and eventually you get a pretty good promo tape. And you get it in front of the ship agents, and then. I mean, I've been doing ships for a long, long time. The only reason I'm still doing it is because it gets better every year. Either my pay or the working conditions or collective. So all those things have kept me in that industry for over 2 decades. So I'm in a really good position right now where I like the schedule I'm doing. I'm very thankful. Um, I just was supposed to actually start a year residency on Disney's flagship, the Fantasy. That theater is actually the most expensive theater Disney's ever built. And it's wonderful. And the audiences are just amazing because they trust in the Disney brand. So they're already like primed. They're ready for a good show. Where other ships you go on, they're being drugged to the show and they're like, oh, what am I going to have to watch this time? It's you got to win them over. So I get to be on the best stage on sea and with the best company and with the best audiences. And I was going to be doing a residency where I fly in and out. So I fly in for the tail end of one cruise, and then I turn the people around, and I get to go home for the day because I live in Orlando, and then perform for a new set of passengers, then fly off. And I would never have to travel with gear or clothes. I just take my backpack home. So it's like I'm only gone about 5 days, and I get to knock out 2 cruises and come back. And we were going to do that for almost a year. And I started my first cruise when COVID hit of that year. So, but back up. So it's
Dang it, Charles!
become
We were just
pigeonholed
pushing.
with just one company.
I sense we're just pushing your bandwidth. You cut out us on a little bit. So you were starting this unbelievably awesome cruise ship job just before COVID.
Yep. Yep. And so, but it's going to start up again. So basically, it's just been on pause, and they said, okay, as soon as everything's back on board, we're just going to restart everybody. So, and it's just a bit of a pause. And the COVID time, I've taken it as a bit of a blessing because I was able to do some deep work on projects that I wouldn't be able to, like flying here and there and jumping around. So I was able to spend a lot of time on the new remote system, a lot of time on some custom routines that I had in my brain and dreamed up, but never came to fruition, just because I didn't have the time to sit down and really work on them in detail.
I gotta say, I am really jealous of that, being on the same stage, the most expensive stage Disney's ever built. That doesn't happen to most of us. And you're walking in there, and I know you're super technical, meaning you have technical requirements. You're able to take advantage of their technology. I am too jealous to be happy for you. That is so cool.
It's great, and you have a great team. But when I work on those ships, when I was bouncing around, Disney only has 4 ships. They're very kind of a boutique cruise line, whereas most lines have like 20 ships. So most people knew me when I came in, and they'd run my show before. But it's still running my own show has still been one of the best things with the remote system, and it helps me so much. And even if I had a steady crew, I would still be using that, just because you never know what's going to happen with it. And I might need to skip a routine because something breaks, or I may need to skip a volunteer routine because I don't see the right person in the crowd. So having that control is great, even with a world-class team like the Walt Disney staff.
Well, let's make sure people understand what you're talking about when you say running your
Oh yeah,
show
yeah.
remotely, because I get it, because I'm one of your customers. But
Yes.
tell us, pretend we don't know anything.
Okay. So when you come in as an entertainer to a venue like a theater, you have to tell your crew, you have to give them all your music, you have to give them all your lighting cues, and then they have to give them a script. So like, they're listening for verbal cues or visual cues of what you're doing in order to play music at the right time and hit lighting cues. And all this needs to be done in a matter of an hour or two. And then they have to retain this, and then they have to perform it flawlessly during your show. And if anything goes differently, you're stuck in whatever you guys rehearsed. So what I did is I created a system um, that lets you control your own cues. Now, my cues come from a laptop backstage. It's a program called QLab, and it's kind of the industry standard software. It's used in all Broadway shows, and Disney uses it themselves. So I have my own little laptop back there with all my video cues, with all my audio cues, anything lighting, anything is back there, and it's all set in an order. Now I can jump around that order, but 90 some percent of the time, I'm just going right in order from one key to the next to the next. And so I have a little remote in my pocket that's a super high powered RF remote, and it's hidden in my pocket. So the audience never sees me touching any cues. So it's almost like a virtual connection to my computer, a wireless connection to my computer. So when I hit that button, it plays the song that I want to. When I hit another button, it fades it out and moves to something else, and hit another button and it brings up a picture of me on TV. It's so the whole show is pre-programmed, and I'm firing when these things are happening. But I can also move around, so if something changes, I can handle that, and I don't need to train my tech staff. Nobody needs to do anything, and so it's all under my control, and it's leaves so much stress in my shows in tech rehearsal, but it's also expanded my possibilities because there's some stuff that I do and I'm like, well, I can't trust the tech to be able to hit this. Like, they'd have to be in my head to know how to do this cue. That all goes away because I just do it myself. And we got top people. We got Carbonara using the remote system. David Copperfield's purchased one before. There's really some of the names that come through the email list. I'm just like, wow. I'm like, he just ordered a remote from me. And so it's been a fun journey. But after 6 years, it's part of my identity now. And that's been a nice journey because I've always was just a juggler, which is fine. I was totally happy with that role. But now I'm the remote guy too. So it's been a fun parallel journey going along with my juggling career.
It's so interesting to watch because people, like, here's what I've done. I've said, what remotes are available? And I started, you will appreciate this. I started with a Radio Shack cassette, and it had a remote control. I still have it, a power interrupter. So you play na 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 na.
That was your fade out and fade in.
That was my first system with music, and then I went to so many things. Show Tech, remember that?
Yeah,
Kerry
yeah, yeah.
Pollock,
Carry system. Yep.
right? And then a couple
Well,
others, and then I finally found yours. So I was kind of waiting for you. But what's interesting to me about you is you're saying, "Oh, I know what I want. I'm going to go freaking make that thing." How does
yeah. I
that come
mean,
up?
it started off. It started off. Well, here was the thing, and this was part of the lizard brain that I had to get around. Um, I was telling the people that were writing the software for the music playback and show playback how to create a remote for it. And I was like, oh yeah, you get a Raspberry Pi and you prototype it and figure out what you want, and it has to be within this frequency because it penetrates walls. And they're like, why aren't you building this? And I had to. I'm like, I don't. I'm just a juggler. It's just like I've never created a product. I've never marketed a product. I've never done customer support for that stuff. So it took a while, and I had to have a couple people that I really respected say, "This is there's no reason that it can't be you doing this. And somebody has to start somewhere." And so then I was like, okay. And so I already had a network of people that built stuff for me for my show. So I tapped into that trusted network, and they helped me along, and I got a budget, and we got the first prototype going. And I remember the day I was actually on a celebrity ship, and I remember the day we opened up sales, and I just watched all these orders come in, and I was just like dumbfounded. I was like, it actually is going to work. I was like, wow, I'm the remote guy now. And
How
then it's
many
just
sales did you get
grown.
that first day? Do you remember?
Probably in the 20s or something like that.
Yeah.
But for somebody who had no idea what was going to happen, that was shocking, you know?
Well, it's I love working with you because I know that you're the beta tester, so I don't have to. I know it's all.
I wouldn't put it in front
I've
of my
written like,
customers unless it's going to be 100% bulletproof. I know that's the one thing. It's like if a remote system or a software, once it fails on you, you're never quite the same. It's that relationship is damaged, and so I never want to do that.
yeah, there's a little trust there issue. All right, so a
Yeah.
couple questions. Do you still wear your remote in your back pocket?
No, I wear it in my front pocket. So that way my hands rest naturally right by my side, so I don't have to make any unnecessary movements in order to push the button.
And what keeps it from rotating?
I use a piece of tape on the back of it. Some people have Velcro, and then there's been some times where I didn't have tape, and it just naturally sets in the corner of my pocket where it needs to be anyway. And it has a different shape, so if it did flip upside down, you could differentiate the top and the
Yeah,
bottom
okay.
pretty easily by feel.
All right, so here's one of the things that I think I'm jealous about you. There seems to be a theme, Charles. Um, you are running all kinds of crazy cues. You are not just running song fade, next song fade,
Right,
skip a song, play song.
right.
You're running music. You're running video. You could plug any electronic in there, and I think you are having
Yes.
some fire extinguishers go off or whatever.
Yep.
That's not available to you, though. I'm guessing, Charles, when you're working a corporate venue where they've just built a stage for you. Am I right?
Well, I there's a yes and a no to that. Um, Besides lighting, everything that I do, I bring myself. So all my glow props, this new thing I'm working on, like it's very technical and has a lot of electronics, but I'll be bringing that. Anything that besides lighting, I bring to the venue myself, and then use that for the show. And these are props that I've built and over the years, and they get refined more and more and more. Um, as far as lighting goes, there's two options for you. You can bring minimal lighting that can act as an accent. So you can have like 8 intelligent lights that you can set at the front of the stage, and they can do like dances and chases, and that all can be run very easily from the
Hmm.
laptop backstage and the remote. So you can program like you know uh, 12 looks with those lights, and so you can add some flair to the stage that way. The other way would be to It would depend on the capability of the lighting board that they have at the venue. If the lighting board at the venue has MIDI capabilities, then what you can do is talk from the computer backstage to the lighting desk, and send what cue you want. So let's say you have 10 lighting cues programmed into that board. Now the lighting designer has to program them, but once they're programmed from the backstage computer, you can say, go lighting cue 8. And you're in control of that with the remote, and you can move around the lighting cues and trigger them. But like I said, that's their board, and it would have to be MIDI capable, and they still need to get programmed in. So what I do actually, I send a video of 40 lighting cues, my 40 lighting cues, and I have them all numbered and labeled, and it's a video. So they get this video file, and then the programmer goes on site in the afternoon and programs all those looks with the right numbers. And then my computer knows the numbers. And so it just says, okay, lighting
Oh,
cue 18, and then lighting cue 18 comes up. So there are ways around it, without getting overly complicated, because you can't really plug your computer directly into their lighting desk and design stuff,
right.
because things are just wired very differently. And then I have friends that do a combination. So they use the venue's lighting console, and they do general washes. And like I was telling you, they bring however many accents they want. They can bring, curtain warmers for the back and change the color, and have like 8 intelligent lights on stage and 2 confetti cannons, and they control all that themselves from the computer. And the general house lighting and the trees come from the in-house console and just as basic.
It's time for a once upon a time. Once upon a time, there was a speaker who looked a lot like me. And, I'm sending my tech requirements and saying I need a tech rehearsal and I need to keep my gear on stage. I don't, I can't have it in the back of the house. And the feedback I got from the meeting planner, Charles, was predictable. God, you're a pain in the ass. The last speaker just came in and said, "Where's the microphone?" and said, "Check, check," and then he went forward. You're dealing with your own gear and all this other crap, and you're not worth it. And then after fighting, because even just giving up, I want my gear accessible to me on or next to the stage, or immediately. If I need it, I need it. Even that fight, as you know, is sometimes a big fight. Afterwards,
Yeah.
the meeting planner said, "Oh, I get it," because I had, thanks to you, some really cool stuff happening. But dang, that
Yeah.
fight left a mark on me, and I'm battling that in my mind already, saying I want to add stuff because having intelligent lights and different looks. Oh yeah,
There's
and
definitely a balance.
I'm a pain in the butt already.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like, if I want to produce my show more, if I want to add more things to it, I can't put more workload on my tech team. So all my solutions that I come up with, are things that the weight goes on me, and it's not much weight because I know exactly how everything works and I just plug everything in. But there's a little bit of work you do pre-show, of course, through your research and through testing and through running these things. But once they're in, then as long as you keep it out of their hair, it's fine.
Right.
What I ask for when I go to a venue is 2 XLR lines, one for my left and right audio, and an HDMI cable. And I say, and then just leave me alone. I will run the show.
That's so cool. And help me see. So now there's 400 people. You're in a Marriott. We have 2 little light trees in the back. There's going to be one guy who works for PSAV. Um, what are you going to bring to that gig?
So I won't bring lighting to that. I don't need the intelligent lighting. I would just fly in and just use their general wash. I will need to turn them off and on because of a couple blackout routines. But I wouldn't tax the lighting person. It's just like, this. It's like you got to pick your battles, like, with how much, what you ask for and when, as far as your requirements on site. So I try and keep everything so minimal, and I try and put all the weight on me. And that way I have control of it, and I become easier and easier to work with. But I don't, it's not lack of, it doesn't take away from my show. And
Right.
that's been a wonderful thing. But yeah, I'm just bringing my gear. So I'm bringing all my custom props. I'm hooking in their video feed. We got to do a video check. We got to do a line check on the 2 outputs, and a mic check. And then that's it. As soon as everything is working, that's it. We're done. And then when it's time for me to hit the stage, everybody just hands off and just watch me do my
Right.
thing.
But again, fast forward back to the being on a Disney ship with the best theater ever, and you have all those toys at your disposal, and you keep coming back so everyone knows you. Oh, that's
Yes,
so cool.
it is nice. And your lighting is already in the desk. So it's just, just, but we also on Disney even, we fire our own lighting cues. It has MIDI in. So I send a MIDI signal from my computer up to their desk. So I'm actually firing the lighting cues.
I would kill
They're
to see that.
programmed in there.
I want to see that show live really bad. Do I have to come on a ship
When
to
I
see it?
first did it, when I first started, yeah, you will. When I first started using MIDI wireless and talking to a board, when I stood on center stage and I just clicked one button and the music started and the lights changed, I was just like, oh, I got kind of giggly. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Did I mention my first cue was?
Hey,
You
you know
have.
what? You were one of the people that looked for those tools and you created them yourself. And that's how I came to be where I am with all my custom props and all the remote systems, because I wanted that tool and it wasn't available. So I learned how to create it. And so did you.
Wow, well, it's amazing. I get a compliment for you creating something so awesome. All right, let's talk about. I've did I mention I've talked to you? You do keynotes. You're an innovation guy. Tell me all about
Right.
that.
Um, I think it's a very natural thing for me to speak about. It's something I'm passionate about. Now, everybody says the word innovation and it gets tossed around a lot. And my corner of innovation is what I was talking to you about. And that's a big part of my keynote is how we can look at the problems we have and instead of griping about them, we can build tools. We're a little bit above chimpanzee level at this point. We can, and even they could build tools. So look for a way to solve that problem. You don't have to spend $100,000 to try and find the solution. Sometimes there's just a simpler way of doing something at the office and streamlining a workflow. For me, it was like, if I had to build a remote system that could eliminate tech rehearsals and let me add production to my show without adding headaches. So this talk is about how to find those places where you can make those changes and not to just go by the status quo. I mean, you didn't look at what you have and say, oh, well, there's no other way to run my sound. I guess I'm just stuck with this. You went out and bought a power interrupter with a remote control and a cassette deck, and you made that tool, and it gave you an advantage. So that's what the keynote is all about.
And I'm guessing you're demonstrating this, saying, "Oh, other jugglers do it this way. I wanted to do it this way, so let me show you." Oh, turning things on and off is a really big deal in my life. Let me show you how that works. So, are you showing them
Well, the
behind the
cool thing
scenes?
is, I don't even need to because I talked to them a little bit about it, but I usually do a flash opener. Well, there's a couple different ways to do the keynote, but no matter what, they've seen me perform a little bit. And like the glow suit's very technical. There's a lot of moving parts and technology in that routine. So they can see it in action. So I'm not just somebody coming up, who they don't know or they haven't seen do anything. So I've won them over a little bit before I even get up on stage and start talking about it. And once I start talking about what's going into that and they've seen the performance, they can put it all together and they can sense the expertise and they can trust me. And so they become very in tune.
Yeah, you kind of have instant credibility once we see what you're doing. They're like, "Oh, yeah, start talking,
Yes,
dude."
that does help.
Uh, okay, so here's what you and I know about keynotes. Um, we have been selected by some person who says this guy would be good for my audience. My audience would benefit by being in front of them. That's very different from the audience picking us. So you were talking
Right.
about when you're in a Disney ship, people come in like, "Oh, Disney has killer shows. It's going to be awesome." But if you're
Yep.
9 o'clock in the morning in Vegas for salespeople, they have no idea who you are and why they should care. So, what do you like better?
Um, of course, the former. But like I said, I don't think I've ever. Oh, I have a couple times spoken before I've done anything. I have done that, and I may it works. I've never not had great feedback, but it is more powerful to start off with something. And there's no reason. I'm trying to think of what the reason was that I didn't. I think they wanted me to save me and like close me out on the shows with the actual performance,
Ah,
but I prefer to do the other way around. And, even if it's a 9 o'clock a.m. meeting, like I'll, do this really eye popping, like high produced, like technical and difficult routine. That's cool. And now I've got their attention and respect. I've given them something. And they're, like you said, they open up much, much more easily. And so I'll always opt for that and try to push for that. But occasionally it's not that way. It still works. But yeah, of course, you want an audience that's primed and ready to go in the perfect performing space. And yeah, that is something that Disney offers me. And I mean, there's other lines too that have incredible theater spaces. Oasis of the Seas. I mean, these theaters are just unbelievable. And so they're wonderful to work in.
oh, it's so fun. I think there is. It's a very different charm because, so I'm never starting my keynote at 8 a.m. with the eye popping juggling piece. Doesn't happen.
Right.
Um, and also, to be honest, I guess maybe it's a. Let me lead with a different question. Sometimes I have pushback from my buyers where they say, "Brad, we're booking you as a business speaker. We need you to speak to our people about business." Which means if I say I'm going to do magic and tell jokes, that is an eliminator. So after
It's
they
so
see it, they like those
backwards.
things, but they don't know enough to say like, is that a tool or is that a distraction?
It's such a tool. It gets people primed to absorb content. It's I don't understand how an event planner doesn't see that unless they're just not that experienced. It just accelerates the learning and the opening up of the brain when you can stimulate it in those ways through comedy and amazement.
Well, let me push back on that. So you're a speaker at 10 a.m. and you have all these people that don't know you and didn't read your bio and don't really know what you're going to talk about other than you're the general session keynote.
Right.
If you start for some of those guys, like the guys in suits with their arms crossed, you're like, I've seen everything. If you start with juggling, some of them are going to tune out really quickly and say, "Oh, he's a juggler. He's a lightweight. I'm out of here," either mentally or
Well,
physically.
no, yeah, you would definitely have to pick your routine, and you can gauge that by the room. Like it depends on what you're coming into. If you're coming to an IBM, sales conference, they're all going to be pretty hard nosed. If you're coming into something different like a yoga retreat, they're going to be a lot more open and receptive. You have to understand all that as a
Right.
performer, and you do, and identify that. So I know when I'm coming into a top sales meeting of like medical equipment, I'm going to have to come with something visual and something that's going to
Right.
blow them back.
I did this thing. It was a really large conference, and I went out and I just did like more or less stand up for like 12 minutes. And I looked at the video, and it's one of those days, Charles, where you're like, I was really good that day. I was tearing it up, yo, and the audience is rolling, and it's like just such a good day. Um, and the client wasn't totally happy because they're like, dude, I hired you as a business speaker, and you made yourself easy to dismiss by people who are saying, I thought he was going to give me 3 points that were going to help me change my business. And that, I don't know where I have landed on that, but I think the meeting planner was not crazy to give me that feedback. Like, yeah, the audience was happy, but I'm telling you, I promised, like, you should have hid that comedy, spread it out, and not led with it. Open up with saying, here's
Uh,
what I'm going to be talking about. Here's how it will help your business.
all right, I've never had to experience that because I have a very different structured even keynote. But I see a validity to what you're saying. I do because it's almost like they're if you're there to do content, they're like, okay, they turn on their content brain and they're like, okay, I gotta pay attention. If you just make them laugh, they're like, oh, he's one of our buddies. Like, I can see that a little bit, but there's ways to do it where you have some really key takeaway points and can really drive that home. And so at least the event planner sees like, okay, well, at least they got like the, three most persuasive sales techniques,
Right.
So
What I
I'd say
wish I
that
would
that
have
would probably
done,
be a way to avoid that.
what I wish I would have done, and it would work for both of us, but just to say, like, I know what you're thinking. You want the 3 points in a poem, the 3 C's of communication or whatever you've sold them. They're
Right.
coming, but I bet you need a break. So, with your permission, we're going to screw around a little bit, but it'll be so fun. And I promise I'll get to the stuff that you're reading about in the program. That would have solved it
That's
for
not a
me.
bad setup. Yeah, that's
Some
not a bad
variation
setup.
of, do you mind if I juggle for 8 minutes? Oh, we'd love that. All right, well, we'll get to the point in a minute then.
Yeah.
I still want to work at on a Disney ship. All right, I am super interested in social and emotional support, like who, the fact that we can be encouragers to others and we can acknowledge others and build them up, and how that's fun for us. I'm guessing you've had people in your life who said to you, a young Charles maybe, or a peer saying, "Dude, I think you're killing it. Wow, you're really good at this," and it stuck with you. Can you, if when I say who were your encouragers, does anyone come to mind?
Oh yeah, there's so many. And I had the anti to that. I was in high school as a juggler. It's just like that's like social suicide basically. So I had to deal with that. But in the real world, people who were outside of the high school tribe, they were very encouraging, and I think that's it definitely made me detach a lot more from the tribe that I was assigned to, and I think that was a blessing. And there were so many people that were encouraging from my parents, luckily, because they had a very non-traditional route. They opened a record store, and left like a blue collar job to go do that. I was surrounded by a lot of positive forces, and then also I started joining my other tribe, the juggling tribe. We're all going to meetings and traveling around and doing conventions and competitions. So that was the one that I identified with. That was the one I knew I belonged to, and I got a lot of encouragement there. And I think it was a big thing. It was something that kept me practicing. Is always getting those words of encouragement meant a lot. And if you're that type of person that unfortunately the opposite affects you, like those words that hurt actually stay with you forever also. So it's
Yes.
a double-edged sword there.
Do you find yourself, you're a celeb, baby. Um, I'm thinking when jugglers look up jugglers, young jugglers, they find you. Do you get that call a lot? Like, I want to be a juggler. How do you do that?
It's definitely you through you meet a lot of entertainers that are on their way up, and you gotta, as an entertainer, I'm sure you've heard this before, is send the elevator back down. And it's something I really enjoy doing. I enjoy mentoring. I enjoy helping, especially for people and artists that want to do the work. You can sense those type of people. There's some people that just I just want to get on stage, or and be able to impress girls, or whatever it is they're going for. And I don't really gravitate toward that. I want to, if you're willing to do the work, then I'll definitely give you my time, and try and get you there. Because I know it was great, the few people that I had doing that for me.
Yeah, it's interesting because I talk so much about the people that encourage us, but I think you kind of landed on the people who are negative as being equally powerful. That's a huge point. I was thinking
And it's
kind
not
of kids, but you're talking about entertainers who are maybe entry level entertainers who are still good, but they haven't figured out what you figured out.
absolutely, and all type of age groups that are on this journey, somewhere on this journey. There's some people that are quitting their job, or are in retirement, and they want to, like, okay, well, I don't have my job anymore. I want to start doing more performing, and they're in their 60s. I'm happy to help them. So people, take that tangent to become a performer, or that path, and all, in all times of their life.
Tim Prendergast wrote, "Can a 66-year-old learn to juggle?"
It's never too late. It's never too
That was the
late.
right
And
answer, my brother.
like I said, it's like the younger ones seem to absorb it a little more quickly because they're not afraid of failing. So they'll just keep trying and think they can do it. And guess what? They'll be much more apt to do it. It's the people that are older that the older they are, and it's usually around the 40s and around that age group, 30s, 40s, 50s. As soon as you say like, "Oh, there's a juggling workshop," they're, "Oh, I could never." Like that's something I'll never be able to do. They've told themselves that story and they believe it 100%. And that's totally untrue. I mean, my one of my coaches, Barry, taught a blind guy how to juggle, and it took a long, long time, but he eventually was able to get it so he could juggle a little bit. A guy who couldn't see.
I can't imagine.
So everybody can learn. There's definitely I've never seen anybody that I couldn't teach that was really willing to open up and be receptive to the learning process and putting in the work and believing they can do it.
So who's this coach mentor Barry?
Oh, Barry Friedman. He was half of the Raspini brothers.
Oh, no way.
They were yeah, very famous juggling duo through the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, just every television appearance you can imagine. And he was one of the persons I looked up to. He was doing all this stuff. And when my career came to a point where I was reaching the same kind of gigs he was, he became a great mentor to me. He has a great program actually out for people in show business called Show Business Blueprint. And I engaged in that, and it was a great, great tool. And I encourage everyone to go check him out.
Is that kind of how you got to be pals with him? You went through the program first, and then he
Yeah,
became
he
friends.
knew of me, and I mean a little bit. We met at a couple juggling conventions, and he had said some really wonderful things to me. Um, but we really didn't get into like succeeding in show business and the business side of it until I took his course, and then he's just one of those guys that is very genuine. So he we became really good friends. And I've pointed out a lot of people toward him, and he's helped every one of
What I love about that though is that you're that guy now.
them. It's fun. It's rewarding, and I've seen a lot of entertainers do well, and it's great to be part of that.
That was well said and kind of humble, a little bit deflecting. So I was looking. Here's you. I found some pictures of you online. Google Images is a thing, but what
Yes.
really this is like your Doogie Howser of juggling. But the picture that kept cracking me up the most. Let me see if I can get rid of these. I can't tell you how many times I found pictures that look like this.
Hold on, I got to turn the camera around. Let me
Okay,
flip her
it's you.
around.
It's you without a shirt. You
Oh
have a
boy.
lot of shit.
Okay,
If
here
I
we
type
go.
your name into Google Images, we found you.
Here we go.
You are naked from the top up. Teach us,
I
Mr.
need to
Peachock.
talk.
What is going on there?
Uh, it's called ratings, my friend. You go on national television, they want ratings. So whatever you got to do in order to make the TV shows happy and the producers happy, I'll do. So if I have to whore myself out and make them happy in that way, that's fine.
Well, how does that
So
come up? You
that's
say,
I don't. Well, the first one was the first appearance I did on America's Got Talent was a glow routine. So I did all that. Hmm. Lots of clothes for that one, actually, big suit. And the second one I did was a fire stunt. And for this fire stunt, there was a lot involved in it, including like lighting my lower half on fire. And we had to actually take a shirt off in order to like make sure the flames like didn't catch on to that. And so we did that, and it had such a big spike in ratings, TV viewers, and so the producers were really pushing, like they're like, and they made me lead the whole episode of the Vegas thing, and they featured it because it was such a, and the routine was great. I was really proud of it, but they felt like, okay, well, that's how you're gonna get, votes and ratings and help everybody if you just, flash a little skin. So I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't like that. I mean, I've never performed shirtless except for those two times on national television because it was warranted. They wanted it, so I was like, okay, it's a client. It's like, okay, is this what you want? Okay, we'll make it happen.
so when you knew that was coming up, Were you like double timing it at the gym suddenly? Like, okay, I'm in shape, but
Uh,
we're gonna make it awesome.
Definitely, the diet definitely gets tightened down a lot. As So there was that, yes, and yeah, there's a little bit of extra gym, a little bit of extra time, but yeah, it's it was something that it worked too. It's crazy as it is, and it's kind of a part of society. I have a disdain for. It's like Instagram and social media. It's like there's a logarithmic hotness scale where it's like if you go to like a 9.5 can get like 100,000 views just by posting anything, and like a 9.8 will get 10 times that many views, and a 10 will get 10 times as many views as him. It just goes up like a hockey stick like that. And I don't really like that part of society that we judge so superficially. And hey, I was part of it. I played that game too, and I played that card when it was my turn. So that's 10
Well,
years ago, but
I challenge
it,
anybody
it's
listening to this to check YouTube and look for Charles Peachock. You were shirtless, but you had the goods behind it, dude. Your act was great.
thanks, man.
So you jump.
Thank you.
You've got fire extinguishers on your feet. Was that triggered by your remote system?
No, that was actually before I was into the remote business. That was about 10 years ago. I've been in the remote business about 6 years. That was actually a professional stunt crew that I had. They were friends, Emmy award winning stunt crew. In fact, one of the guys back there doing all my fireproofing, he was the night rider. He always drove Kit, if you ever saw that car
Yeah,
going
of
around.
course.
And so I had friends that had made through the business, and they literally helped me out for free. They just wanted to see me do well. They believed in what I was doing, and we prepped in LA, and then they drove out with me to Vegas to do the shoot. And I had four like professional stunt people help me pull that stunt off.
That's fun. I think when you're in jobs like ours, they can be more lonely than people guess. And so I'm guessing working with that team was freaking fun.
It is. It was.
All right. You've been really generous with your time. Charles, I promised you I would end with a question. I like to ask everybody the same question. So you get to
Okay.
interpret any way you want. Charles Peachock, juggler, speaker, inventor, innovator. What gives you hope?
Uh, I would say seeing people like uh, wake up, like have revelations. You see people in negative behavior, and it's hard to break out of that, or negative mindsets, and it's hard to break out of that. And I only get to break people out for minutes at a time. So during my performance, one of the best things is to make them forget about their bills and their problems with life and everything. And my hope, and what gives me hope, is when I see people in life actually. We have so many opportunities. We live in such a great era, and people just look at the negative side of things, or what they can't have, or what they're not getting, and they're not willing to look at what's available and the beauty around them. And when that happens, either on a big stage, somebody does it, or personally, that gives me hope that everybody can get there into a place of happiness and fulfillment.
Aw. Well, you're a good man. I so appreciate you. You've been so helpful for me. You're always willing to, because here you are. You've invented this system, but it's just a tool, and if you don't know how to use it, it's not that helpful. And everyone's got to figure it out. But you've coached, I know, everybody with this, and including me. So thank you for that. Thanks for spending the time with me. Make it a great day, Charles Peachock. You rock.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Stay with me, Charles. Thanks, everybody.